Good day, everyone, and welcome to our data mine open pit webinar campaign. This session is session number 5, evaluation and volumetric reports. And my name is Terence Valewala, a mining engineer from Data Mine South Africa. And I'm not alone, I am with Aja. She's a mining engineer from Data Mine as well. And if you have any questions, please, I'll ask you to write them down or type them in, and then we will attend to them after this webinar. So just to take you through a quick recap on what happened on webinar 1 or the past 4 webinars that we had. On the first webinar, I just took you through the NPVS, where she showed you how to actually create an ultimate pit. So she showed you how to set the block model and apply the economic parameters. She showed you also how to choose the best LG phase for your ultimate pit. So during the second webinar, I took you through the pit design. We did the automatic pit design, showed you how to add the roads. I showed you how to add switchbacks, and I also showed you how to create surfaces. In the third webinar, JP took you through the creation or the generation of pushbacks. It shows you on NPV where he imported the ultimate pit, and then he chose the pushbacks and exported the model from there to the design. So on the fourth one, JP again took you through how to generate your sequence, and he imported the design from the Studio OP, and also set the sequence parameters and export the block model to Studio OP. So in this webinar, I am going to take you through the evaluation techniques. So what we are going to do is that we're going to use a block model to evaluate for evaluation. We're going to use our strings and outlines, and also the wireframe to evaluate our block model, depending on what exactly you want to evaluate. I'll also show you a bit of our cut and fill tool that we have. So what is required for this webinar for you to actually follow? You need to have a block model. You will need to have a wireframe of your pit. You also need to have your outlines or your string. It can be a boundary string or any string. So the benefits from this webinar will be just the high level. Actually, will be you know that using the outlines, you need to know that using the outlines you can actually do the evaluation of the mining zones for short term and medium term. You can also use that for maybe if you want to actually evaluate, for example, your blast blocks or your drilling plans. And you can, for cut and fill, that will be for the reconciliation purposes. So I'll quickly switch to the software where we are going to do this demonstration. So quickly, what we need for this is actually the block model. This is my block model, but I'm viewing it on an intersection. So I can change this to blocks quickly, and then you see how it looks like. So I have my string here for that I want to use for evaluation. It can be a boundary string, for example, if you just want to maybe evaluate one piece of your block model, and you want to see how much you have within that block model. So to do this, you'll need to go to do a dynamic evaluation. If you come here on the report ribbon, you will see that we have evaluate dynamic here. And so you can see that I have a string. This allows me to evaluate using the string, and this allows me to evaluate using the wireframe. So in this case, you can see that this one is checked out. This is because I don't have any wireframe that I have loaded on my 3D window. So for now, let's focus on the string one, and then I'll show you the wireframe. If you click here on string, you're going to get this page here. This is basically where you're going to set up your evaluation settings. So here under name, this is where you have to define your block model. As you can see here, you have to define the block model that you're going to use. So with the drop down, you can actually select if you have more than one block model to actually evaluate based on that specific block model. So under evaluation legend, this is where you can select your legend that you want. For example, I have a legend that I used here. Maybe I can select this one, webinar 5 gold legend. So I will select the column as gold, but you do have a wide range of columns that you have on your block model as the fields. So under density, this is the global density where you can actually define your global density. This will be applied to blocks that don't have densities, but the other ones that have densities will apply the densities that they have within the block model. So the block identifier actually, this is necessary. This is important if you have your outlines and you don't want to combine your results for reporting. So here under grade columns, I'll show you how this block identifier works. I have some outlines that I've created for this webinar. So if here under grade columns, this is where you select the fields that you want to report on. For example, if I select on none, you'll see that everything will be unchecked. And if I select all, everything will be checked. So for this exercise, I just want to report on my gold and copper. So after selecting this, you can see here under limits, I have my projection distance. I can define, this is the projection distance from the string that I have, that I want to use as an evaluation constraint sort of. And this will be the distance from that string up, and this will be the distance, the elevation down. So there's also absolute elevation. This is just where you define the maximum elevation up and down as well. So in this exercise, I'm going to use this. For example, let's say I want to evaluate up, and I can just say I want to evaluate maybe 100 meters up from the string. And we have to make sure that this string is actually selected for this to be successful. If I don't select this string, the software will not know which string I'm going to use for evaluation. So dynamic evaluation allows you to select one or more than one strings or outlines if you want to do an evaluation. So if I don't want to, here on down, if I don't want to evaluate going down, I can just put 0 there. So this option, under options, you are also allowed to actually copy the string attributes as well. So in this case, I can just say, okay, you have options here to cancel or continue with okay, or cancel with this button here, cancel. And let's say maybe I'll show you afterwards, after running this report here, you can also restore your settings that you have defined. So in this case, I am going to say okay, and now I have the evaluation report with me here. So you can see that under I have my report here with density, tons, volume, and copper gold as well, as I have specified on the settings. Say I want to save the results, I can save my results here. Under save results, I can also go back to settings, evaluation settings, by clicking on this if I want to change something. For example, if I want to add another field here. So if I can also export my results to Excel if I want to save them and maybe report them or send them to someone for analysis as well. So closing this, I will not save this. Closing this, and then I can go back to show you how to do the restore button. So for example, I can go back and click on strings, and I can restore all my settings. As you can see here, everything that I've created is still everything that I've defined during when I was doing performing the first task. It actually restored it. So let's say I want to use my outlines. Let's say I want to use my outlines. For example, I have these outlines here. What I like about this Studio P is that you can actually use the shortcuts. For example, I want to select all these strings that I've displayed here. I can just go SAS and all my strings will be selected. Now, if I go back to strings, you will see that I can still evaluate, and if I restore, if all the settings that I've done before, they will be created. They will be brought back. So let's say I want to, under block identifier, let's say I want to under default, this is where I can actually name my blocks the way I want. For example, I want 10 to start with 10, and then I want the increments of 10. So it's gonna say 10.1, 10.1, 10.2, just like that. So if I want to override any field that I want to override, I can select here and override. So in this case here, you can select the field that you want. In this case, I'm fine with the block ID. So if I go to check here the fields that I've selected that I want to report on, you can see that my gold and copper are still selected. So I can quickly click OK. So under OK, you can see that I don't have block IDs here. So for me to create the block IDs, I'll have to come here and combine and activate this guy, combine block results. So you can see that I have a report that looks like this. I can export this to Excel, but before I do that, I can actually, I want to show you why I call this dynamic evaluation. So I'll just go SAS again and select my strings, and you can see that after when I check them out, the report becomes blank because there are no selected strings. So I'll quickly translate my strings up by 10 meters, for example. Just keep your eye here. You will see how the results will be affected. So I can just say TRA, and I want to translate by NZ direction, and I want to select 20 meters. So if I click OK, if you can keep your eye on these strings and also the results here, you will see that my strings will move up and my results will be changed. So if I quickly export my results here, you see that I get my results with increments of tens as well. So I can quickly select all and insert a pivot table and group my information the way I want. For example, I can use the row and I can use or for example, I can use the block ID. I can use the block ID here. So all the block IDs that I've created are here. And I can report this as chance. For example, this is just an example to show you can see that on block 10, we're going to have this and 20, 30 respectively. So I am going to minimize that. And another thing is that let's say you want to, for example, maybe select one block that you have here. You will see that I get the results of that specific block. that I've selected, which is this small block here. So we also have a wireframe tool. So what I'm going to do is I'll select my wireframe that I want to use here for my evaluation. And I'm going to evaluate based on this wireframe. And I want to see what's inside this wireframe. So now you can see that my wireframe tool has dialog has been activated now. So if I click here on this, you will see that almost the same page comes back, and I'll have to select the block model that I'm going to use, and I'm going to select my wireframe that I'm going to use here. So in this case, it gave me topo here, but I don't want to use that 25 topo. I want to use this guy here, the pushback 4 design. So I can still select, if I want, I can still select my legend here, and I select my my column, my gold column. The density is still the same, and the block identifier, if I have multiple wireframes and I want to report the results separately, I don't want to combine the results, I can still do what I've done with the outlines as I've showed you before. So under this guy here, I can just select none and then continue with my gold here again and copper. And here you can see that it gives me an option of closed volume or DTM. So in this case, I don't have a closed volume. I'm going to show you that after the cut and fill, how I'm going to take into how I'm going to use that closed volume calculation using the solid that I'll create on the cut and fill. So here I'm going to actually calculate the volume above, not below. So above my DTM, so it gives me, it automatically create this elevation or the distance from the bottom to the top part of my pit, because it looked at it picked up the crest. So if I quickly click on OK here, I get the results. So even still same thing, if you want to actually export this to Excel or save the results, or if you want to report your results according to the blocks, you can still do that. So in this case, I have one wireframe, so that will never happen on this one, on this wireframe that I'm using here. So let me quickly go to cut and fill so that I can come back here as well and show you how to actually use the closed volume. So under cut and fill, to access cut and fill, you can go to surface ribbon, and at your far right, you can find this guy here, cut and fill. And cut and fill allows you to actually simply evaluate the cut and fill volumes based on the original and the updated wireframes. So an example would be, maybe if you have a planned topo and after a certain period, and also the surveyed topo, you can do that for reconciling. So after clicking on cut and fill volumes, you will land on this page here, and in this case, you can see here it allows you, it needs two inputs. So it will be the earlier surface and also the later surface. So in this case, I want to use the topo that I have, and the topo that I have, and also the one that I created, assuming that it will be 2025. It will be a 2025 topo, just to calculate the volumes between those two topos. So here it checks by default it actually checks your verifying tick box, so it will verify these wireframes for you automatically. So under this make, this is where if I select here, it's going to actually limit the number of triangles to the number that I input here. So in this case, I don't want to limit anything. So it also allows you to evaluate using the outlines, and it allows you to evaluate using the benches. So you can evaluate against the block model, or if you want a quick summary, you can do that. So for now, I will use the benches just to show you the results and how it actually works. So here under output, this is where you can actually give the output name. If you want to include areas, you can include areas, include volumes as well. And you can see most of the things are unchecked here. The reason why these ones are unchecked is because I haven't run anything. After running something, that's when I'm going to actually get something here. It's going to activate these buttons here. So here it's basically viewing your results, summary file on Excel, and also on a table editor, the data mine one. So if I evaluate my results against the block model, even this guy here will be checked as well. So here under cut and fill, this is where you can actually name your results as well, that you want your results to be named as. And here the solids as well, you also get the solids after the cut and fill has been performed. So this is basically to remove the contaminants or smaller volumes that you don't want to see after your cut and fill. So quickly going back to these guys here, these three guys here. If you can also use the selected strings, and you can use the object by selecting it under the drop down here. So for example, if I have outlines, I can just select the outlines that I want to use here. So in this case, I want to use the benches. So we can see that my bench volume with benches, calculate my volume with benches is actually unticked and everything is unchecked here. So I can quickly check that, and can select. So here, this is where you select it gives you an option to select the pit that you have defined from the setup. So if you remember on webinar 2, part 2, that's when I actually showed you how to create, for example, set up the block model and all that, and then we design. And then now if I click on the drop down, it goes and picks up that pit that we have designed during webinar 2. So if you don't have, for those who have missed the previous webinars, we can actually share. You can send me an email. We can share with you the links to view those webinars again, so that you can link with this one. So say you have your own pit and you want to import it manually, you can do that. You can just come here and put your crest elevation. For example, on mine, I know that it's 1362. So I can just input that 1362. And I will also specify the bench height. I know my bench height is 10, and I can specify the number of benches up to when I want to evaluate. So and then when you apply, it's going to create these guys here for you: the bench levels, the height, the crest elevation, and the toe elevation. But I don't want to use this manual. I want to go back and use my pit that I've designed in part 2. So I'm going to select that, and then I'll apply. And under evaluation, I want to evaluate my results against the block model. So I'll come here and select evaluate the cut volumes against the block model, and I'll select the block model that I have defined again on during webinar part 2 under setup report. So you can still select it you can also select it manually. For example, I have another block model here that I can use. So I can just select that block model and I can select define my default densities, and I can also select the legend that I want to use for reporting. So in this case, I am going to use the planning one, the one that I've defined under setup and under setup actually. And I'm going to leave my density as 1, and I can quickly select my legend here, and I can select the field that I want to use. I can use litho or my grades as well, my gold or my elements, my gold or my copper. So after defining this, I can maybe call them bench. I'll call them bench bench 2, cut and fill, and this one, these are my outputs actually. So I can do that for this one as well, call it 2. I can do this as well, bench 2, so that I can easily identify my result. Bench 2. So if you click here on calculate, it's going to evaluate it, and you see that it's done. And you can see now things that have it gives you a small report, but I'm going to show you the bigger report that I have here. So here it gives you the results, the summary file. It also gives you the results with the components from the block model. So you can view it by table editor, you can view it on Excel. If I quickly click here on Excel, you will notice that I have something like this. I get these results here. So I can insert a pivot table to visualize this easily, quickly, and I can maybe view my results as bench and maybe category, and I can put my tons here. You can still put your grades as well if you want to. If I can quickly define them as this guy here. And also copper here. Just not to waste time, let me show you the report that I quickly created from the same results that I have here. So these were my results that I obtained. So I can see from the bench, 1222, I have this contents that I have inside my blocks, and you can view that as you go down and see what you have on your benches, on your different elevations or your bench IDs. So taking you back to the results, so here you get the output as an Excel file, you get the output as an table editor, you get an output as also a solid, for example, and the outlines as well. If I can hide these guys here, this is the results that I was actually looking for. So I can actually extract this guy by color. So remember, I had the topo that I had that I estimated that by 2025 I'll be there. So if I can come here and actually extract this guy, by color. So I get two colors here. So if I uncheck the red one, I can quickly show my block model, go back to report, and evaluate again. This time I'm going to evaluate using the closed volume. So I'll just restore everything and change this guy to a closed volume. And then I evaluate. So you can see that I get these results here from the closed volume. And just to quickly show you again how I separated these two guys, I just right click on the file that I want to extract from, and then I extract it by color, which is a nice tool or function to actually use on OPU when you want to separate files. So going back to the surfaces, we have another evaluation. Let me select this guy here. We have another evaluation tool, but this one is for volumes. So with this tool, you can actually evaluate your volumes, for example. So in this case, I will say colors. Okay, yes, this one. So you can actually select the closed volume here. It's the same. It's almost the same thing. You can select the closed volume and also define your outputs here. So under outputs, I'll just say webinar. Sorry. Webinar 5 or 05, and here this is where you write the attributes that you want to see on your file, and you can define your density. So I'll leave my density as 1 here, and also leave the verify tick on. So after that, you can click OK, and then it gives you a brief summary of what happened. And if you go to loaded data, you will see that there's actually the results webinar 5 there, and I can save this file, save it as webinar 5. Say I want to view this guy, I can just go to the tables and I can double click, and then you see, I can just double click on it, and then you see the different results that you get from it. So you get different results like your center of gravity, your X, Y, and Z as well, and the volume of the whole DTM. So this basically marks the end of this webinar, ladies and gentlemen. It was a very short one. Please join us in the next 2 weeks. That's when we are going to look at this ribbon here, where we are going to create the reserves from the designs that we have and actually do the sequencing and all that.